I think this group especially has worked very, very well, especially considering that the group that we have are about like, the people that were involved in this short were about like 7 or 8 people or something. One of the great things about this specific class itself is that we have so many diverse people who are interested in so many different things. The fun thing is trying to find a project that kind of mixes all of those things together, which was kind of the reason why we made The Wanderer.
Gage, move.
Well, there was a lot of preparation for it, actually, more than I thought there was going to be. There was a lot of getting into character that Erica and I both had to do, Breanna also. The lines that were presented were very important, so we had to make sure that we got those right and that they were presented in the right fashion, and that's where the character comes in. So I had to talk with the director, Bodhi, Erica had to do this too, and really figure out exactly how we wanted these characters to be, how we wanted them to act, behave, maybe a little bit of what their histories were like. And though that's never actually revealed in the video, it really helped us figure out how we were going to play that character. I've acted a little bit in my own like self-produced videos, small things, YouTube things, a couple things I haven't even shared with people because I'm not super proud of them, but this was, I'd say, my first decently important acting experience, definitely a first lead role. This experience was very valuable for me as a media producer because I've never done, like I said earlier, any serious acting in the past, and this wasn't, you know, all that serious, all things considered. I had it pretty easy for this project, I believe, but it was something that I really need to work on and still is, and I think I got a great head start on that, and it was awesome working with the cast and the crew, everyone involved, and everyone was just great, very helpful, and I think that we can expect to see a lot of success in the future of this class. In the last few months of the school year, we have a lot more we can accomplish, so be on the lookout for that.
3, 2.
I played several roles. I was an actress. I did prop design and costume design. So the way costume design initially started was we figured out, like we pretty much made like a Pages document of all of the characters and what we wanted them to look like, or what Bodhi's like vision of them were. And I got out all sorts of like costume references based on the time period, and then what we could work with because we didn't have a budget or anything. Using like all one color would be very boring, so I tried to vary colors and textures as much as possible. Hence why with all of the different costumes, every character's textiles were based off of what they were and what their personality was in a way. Like the Wanderer wore a lot more like rugged clothing, corduroy, fleece, and the Witch wore like softer clothing, velvet, sheer textiles, etc. There were a couple challenges. Getting things that fit everyone was difficult, but also looking for the cape was hard. We had a few different things we were going to do for the cape for the Wanderer, and then we settled on a piece of fabric that we safety pinned to the Wanderer. But it worked out fine. I have previous acting experience both on and off camera, stage and video. I think having previous acting on stage helps a lot when it comes to acting in video. It helps me with have like a greater control over like my facial expressions, my body actions, voice, tone, the way you say lines. It's cool seeing how everyone's like talents and like interests all come together to make one big masterpiece of stuff. Like, I wouldn't be able to do half the stuff that everyone else is doing. Like, the sound's amazing, and the coloring looks so good. Like, looking at like just the footage, I'm like, oh, that's good, and then suddenly it's like slightly darker. I'm like, oh, that's even better. Yeah, it's really great. Wearing yellow contact lenses outside, where it's very sunny, makes it very hard to see. And I'm glad I got to stumble blindly through this production with all my friends.
All right, cut one more time.
Oh, hi. Color correction plays just about as much a role as sound design or camera work in a video. Colors can often trigger certain emotions in people, like the color red. It can mean like hot or evil, and the color blue can mean like cold or somber. And the best examples you can see of this are like in the most popular TV shows today, like Walking Dead, Breaking Bad. They all have their own color schemes, and sometimes it's almost as a signature. Like you just look at a random scene in it and like, oh, that's The Walking Dead, or oh, that's Breaking Bad. And yeah, that's color correction for you. Aside from being a colorist in the video editing process, I did some camera work. I held a lot of things like props when I was like, standing around. I had to carry the skull around because, no one else could hold it and everyone's holding around the camera and stuff. And I also did what little storyboarding there was in this. My typical role, it's probably closer to video editing and sometimes special effects. But other than that, I just tried to be a jack of all trades. It was very interesting to see this come together. Like, it was almost like a patchwork of things, because not everyone has, everyone has their strengths and weaknesses, and to see all that come together in a video, that can basically complete it.
I mainly did the hallucination scene. Bodhi did most of all the other editing. That was really fun. I sort of drew it a storyboard in like less than 10 minutes. And I was like, okay, I kind of have an idea, so I threw it together. It was all supposed to be sort of in this really empty world, except those two people, so everything sounds like it's echoing of nothingness, and how, everything around the characters is black, and how there's only this one light, which sort of is the light of themselves. It's sort of who they are. It's like their being. And so when he fades into darkness, it's like he's not him anymore. He's losing himself, he's losing his light. Audio plays a huge role, because if you have ever seen one of those examples of the film with sound and then the film without sound, you don't quite understand what's going on. So like, say you see a car driving really fast on a highway. There's no sound, maybe ambient, so like you hear the tires rolling on the pavement. You're just like, oh, it's an average day. But if you add in some sort of like heist music, da-da-da-da-da, like banging on the keyboard, you're gonna be like, oh my God, it's a robbery, like they're evil. We didn't do really any Foley. A lot of it was found off either YouTube for like ambience, or Bodhi's friend Ben, who was sort of our writer. He wrote music for us, and we gave him like a little like really rough cut of the film, and he looked at it, he decided upon like, they want this and that, and then he threw something together, and it worked really, really well. I didn't know how to use Audition till after this project, because I'd always try to manipulate it with like physically, because that's what I do with Audacity, and it's not Audacity. So what I found is that it works when you do what it wants you to do. So I clicked on presets and I made, the voice of death very deep and low and like maniacal, and I made all the whispers and stuff very echoey, very ghost-like. I'm not big on acting. The only acting I've ever done is for plays or musicals. Usually I'm ensemble, because I think it's fun to be a part of this world that isn't real, but you're trying to portray it for everyone else. And so I feel like I can hit some of the like facial expressions sometimes, but I'm not that big on it. I prefer to like help people work into that being and like become that character. Working in theater is a little different than film, because sometimes when you're theatrical, it's not quite the same caliber as if you're trying to act natural. It really wasn't that cold, because we've had a really nice winter, which I'm thankful for, because I remember last year trying to shoot something and your shoes would sink into the ground and your feet would get all wet, and like you'd have to reevaluate how you planned it, because you're like, maybe I should have brought in different shoes in. So this year I brought different shoes. It was much better, but it was much warmer, so
Sup, squad? West Side.
It is so time consuming to do special effects, and I actually, while I'm doing this interview, have special effects rendering and processing and all of that. Probably not going to be done by the time this is over, but they'll be done soonish and thrown into the actual mix. It was mainly smoke and some color correction, a lot of masking and a lot of motion tracking. I had to stand around in the cold. I didn't really move a lot, and I had to keep pulling my sleeves down to cover up the gloves, which were gray right up until they got to my wrists when they turned rainbow. So it was very undeath-like, and I had to, keep covering those up. Yeah, it was very cold and a lot of standing, but that's kind of what I do for my regular job, so I'm used to it. Bodhi is a pretty good director. It was mainly like, okay, now act like death. And I was like, oh, I know how death acts. He acts like this, and I did that. And if he needed me to do something more specific, he'd let me know, and then, he's a pretty good director. It's fun. I like it. We should do more of these things.
Quiet on the set in 3, 2, 1, go!
When we started discussing the project, everyone wanted to do a fantasy film. Breanna and I went through and then wrote a script, which ended up being 11 pages long. So it's a little bit shorter than the final product, which, usually scripts don't translate to being longer or shorter than the final product is, which is fine. The weather was a really, kind of our worst enemy in this case. Because we wrote the script, we had most of the props assembled, and we would all leave during Christmas break and then come back, and we wanted to shoot immediately. The problem was there was absolutely no snow on the ground until maybe mid to late January. So we had about another week, if not 2 weeks, to wait to start filming The Wanderer, and we went totally nuts because we came back and we're just waiting for it to snow, and it just wasn't snowing. The other big issue was the amount of time it took to edit the project. I want to say we took about a good month to just edit the project itself because there was so much that we had to do, and you can't do a whole lot within 2 hours of school time. So you have a lot of just completing little things every single day, and then it eventually kind of builds up to having close to a final product, but you're still missing something, and it's just really bothersome to kind of have to take that long to edit it. But we wanted to have all of the parts together and make sure that everything was kind of put together. I've always wanted to be a director for as long as I can remember. I remember when I was younger, I would watch behind-the-scene footage of some of my favorite movies, specifically the Star Wars films. I would watch the behind-the-scene documentary films about how the process to making Star Wars came to be. I guess there's sort of an attractiveness to being a director because when you're a director, you have kind of the creative input and the creative control and the creative direction to how you want a film to be. This is kind of a first for the class itself, and it's a first for, I think, our teacher, Mr. Beane, that we've managed to attempt this sort of project. So I think hopefully in the future this will give more kids to be motivated to do this sort of similar project in the future.
I would never have allowed any of my previous classes in the previous years. There might have been one or two that could have pulled this off and made it work, but in the past, whenever there's been any kind of large-scale production, it has met with less than stellar results. It hasn't been successful. So this year, to me, was a big risk that paid off so beautifully I can't even begin to tell you. I've never been happier or prouder of a class than I am right now with this class. At first, when they first started working, I was nervous because I didn't know how it was going to go. There's so many different personalities that have to work together that haven't known each other that long in some cases. But it was really interesting for me, and and truthfully fun, because I mean, I sat in on the first couple meetings and would throw an idea out. After about 2 meetings, the students had enough of that, and I kept getting these looks, and I went, yeah, it's time to back out. So I did, and I just told everybody that unless I hear from you, I am assuming everything's going well, and everything went not only well, but better than I would have expected. So I'm really proud of them. I'm proud of everybody that had any part of it. They did a stellar job. It's going to be an outstanding production. I can't wait to premiere it. And it's one of the best things that's come out of my program. So yeah, I'm very happy with the way things worked and how well they worked together. It's a credit to each one of those, each member of the class that worked together. It's a credit to all of them that they were able to do it and do it so well. Professionally, there's the word I was looking for. I've been in a lot of professional environments where getting that many people working together would have been damn near impossible. And definitely not fun. These guys did it and had fun doing it and came out with an outstanding product. There's nothing better than that.
Fun on the set?